My beloved, in this picture here, thus far, we see in innocence, humanity failed. In conscience, humanity failed. In governments, humanity failed. And in fatherhood, humanity all failed. In all these four, all humanity failed. We come now to the fifth measure, the law, the time of Moses. Now let's look at the law. You see, the fifth measure is the law, the Old Testament. Here we answer those who think and ask this question: why is the God of the Old Testament so difficult and bloody? Here we're going to answer this question. Now, before we answer the question, I want to ask a question. It's always good and healthy to ask a question. The question is, why did God write the law, the Old Testament? Why did He do it in the first place? You see, God wrote the law through His prophets in order to reveal who the human being really is. I'll say it again. The reason why God wrote the law of the Old Testament in order to reveal who the human being really is. Now another question: why did He write the New Testament? In order to reveal who God really is. He wrote the Old Testament to reveal who the human being really is. And He wrote the New Testament to reveal who God truly is. So now we come between the law and grace. The law is the fifth measure, grace is the sixth measure. John the Beloved spoke about them in his Gospel, chapter 1. In chapter 1, and I believe verse 17, he says, for the law was given through Moses. For the law was given through Moses. This is the fifth measure. But grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. This is the sixth measure. For the law was given by Moses. So what did Moses do? He just gave the law that was given to him by God. But what about grace? Grace was made by Jesus Christ, not given by Jesus, but Jesus made grace possible. So there is a humongous difference between Jesus. If some people think he is just a prophet, then Moses the prophet. There is no comparison. That's why Jesus is God revealed in the flesh. For the law was given by Moses, fifth measure. But grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. This is the sixth measure. My beloved, the human being was controlled by Satan ever since Adam transgressed against God in the Garden of Eden. Satan controlled the entire human race, all humanity, without any differentiation or distinction. Therefore, God wanted through the law of the Old Testament, God wanted through the law to lift up this human being from the satanic level to the human level only. So the law of the Old Testament, God gave it to the Israelite nation, and in the hope through them to the entire world, so that God would lift that human being from the satanic level, which is now controlled by Satan, from that satanic level to the human level only. Thus, the laws which God gave in the Old Testament to the Israelite nation were at the human level. God could not have given humanity anything beyond their capacity. So God gave them laws that were relevant to the human capability. Anything beyond the human capacity, God did not give. God did not give. Now, what is the human level? It's a question. What is the human level? The human is taken from the soil. So the human level is the level of the soil. What is the level of the soil? The law of physics. What is the law of physics? For every action, there is a reaction. Equal in force, opposite in direction. For every action, there is a reaction. Meaning, the law of the Old Testament that was given by God to Israelite nation says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was the law of the Old Testament. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. What does that literally mean? It means if you plug my eye, I'll plug your eye. And if you plug my tooth, I will come and plug your tooth. In other words, love the one who loves you and hate the one who hates you. This is what humanity is capable of at its best. So as far as the human capacity is concerned, humans in the natural realm, we can only love those who love us, and we can only hate those who hate us. We can never love those who hate us. That is the natural law. That is the law of the Old Testament. God elevated the human race of the Old Testament from the level of Satan. What is the level of Satan? Hate everyone regardless. Punch them without any reason. Chop them for no reason, because I just feel like it. Tough luck. That's Satan. Humanity better than Satan. I'm not going to punch you until you punch me first. If you punch me once, I'll punch you once. You punch me twice, I'll punch you twice. You punch me 3 times, I'll punch you 3 times. You plug my eye, I plug your eye. You plug my tooth, I won't take you to Istanbul to reinstate the tooth. So God wanted to take the human race from the Old Testament, from the satanic level to the human level. That's why He gave them laws relevant to the human capacity. He never gave them anything beyond their reach, because the flesh is weak. That's all it can do. You can't ask a person from this world, forgive your enemies. They'll say, yeah, you're crazy, man. I'm going to go and kill them all. That's the talk of the world. And that's the talk of the law of the Old Testament. Now, God could not have asked any more than this from the Israelite nation. Therefore, when God said to the Israelites, wipe the pagans from the land. You know, people say when we read the Old Testament, this God of you guys Christians you believe in, this God says go and kill so and so, chop him, chop him, chop him. So how come this God of the Old Testament is the same God of the New Testament? When we come to the New Testament, this God is totally different and utterly different. This God says if somebody strikes you on your cheek, to give him the other one. If somebody takes you by force a mile, go 2 miles. Love your enemy. Pray for those who persecute you. Totally different gods. You Christians, you don't know what you're doing. No, Habibi. Come, I teach you. Come, I teach you. So when God said to the Israelite, wipe the pagans from the land. Now why God said to the Israelite, go and wipe the pagans from the land? Because in Isaiah chapter 8 verse 8, look what Isaiah is saying in 8 verse 8. He will pass through Judah. He will overflow and pass over. He will reach up to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. So whose land is it? It is the land of Emmanuel. So Israel is not the land of the Israelis nor the Palestinians. It is the land of Emmanuel. And who is Emmanuel? When we come to the New Testament, Emmanuel is Jesus Christ of Nazareth. That is his land. Very controversial thing to say in our time and age. But I'm just good looking. So the land is Emmanuel. And what does the word Emmanuel mean? God with us. For he shall be called Emmanuel. Also Isaiah prophesied. And who was called Emmanuel? Jesus of Nazareth. All glory to his holy and mighty name. So the land belongs to Emmanuel, Isaiah 8:8. And for those who believe in the Torah, they better believe in the prophecies, the Old Testament prophecies. They need to believe the land belongs to Emmanuel, no one else. Now, God was never bloody. All it was, the land was his, and he gave it to the Israelites. He chose to give his land to the Israelites. And God is free when he chooses to do things in certain ways. God has the right, and no one can say no to God. So he said, this is my land, and I'm giving it to the Israelites. And for as long as, so I don't want anyone to misunderstand here. And God is saying, for as long as the Israelites worship me, God said to them, go and wipe the pagans from the land. But the day the Israelites disobey me, I will send the Assyrians and the Babylonians, and they will wipe the Israelites. God, our God, is very fair and very just. Yeah? So when he gave the land to the Israelites, he didn't give it just so they can do whatever they wish. They need to obey him, and if they don't, he will bring other nations to discipline them. But as long as they are obeying him, he gave them the right to go and wipe the pagans. Why? Because pagans cannot exist in a land that belongs to the true living God. And for them to dwell in the land that belongs to Emmanuel and they worship false gods, God will never accept it. God will never accept it. You see, God is saying, you walk right, you will be all right. You walk right, you will always be all right. This is the law. You break the law, don't expect to be all right. Don't expect to be all right. And for this reason, God says in the Old Testament, if you fulfill the law, I will bless your produce, I will bless your children, I will bless your home, I will bless your health, I will bless your possessions, and I will keep your enemies away from you. But if you break the law, the opposite will happen to you. The opposite will happen to you.